Mhm. These videos always have an awkward few seconds of me chatting in the beginning. All
I think we're live.
right. So what's up, HireClub? I'm Diantha, the director of coaching here. And with me today is Lisa Windfield. We're going to be talking about finding purpose and meaning just in your career and how to go about doing that. But thank you for joining me today, Lisa. Why don't we just start off by having you talk a little bit about why this topic matters to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Why this topic matters to me? So mainly because of my own story. I've been the one who made it to New York City I'm from Europe, and I got my artist visa, I got my dream job, and then I realized quickly it wasn't my thing. And then I got a new job, and after a year or two, I realized it's not really it either. So I ended up changing my career twice. And in those, I think it's been 6 or 7 years, I was, jumping around from job to job, looking for purpose. And then I had also founded a couple businesses because I realized maybe I need to look for purpose outside of the job world. So I created businesses, but I ended up really burning out from basically having 2 jobs. So after about 6 or 7 years of that, I realized it's been enough. All right. I was burned out. I was tired. I felt really, and I had really run my health into the ground a little bit. And so I said to my coach at the time, I said, listen, I need to now do this properly. I need to find my calling. And so I went on this journey, and as a high achiever, as I was or still am, I really went all in with the search, and I read books, I did courses, I was really applying myself and did this properly. And so what I love to do was to really also use my design thinking as a designer, was to come out ideas. Have you heard of design thinking?
Yes, I have. But why don't you tell us more about it?
Yeah, it's something I now do with my clients. So I found something that I thought I would maybe like. So one day I realized, oh my God, I've had a coach for, I think it was like 3 or 4 years. So maybe I love coaching. So maybe I like coaching. Maybe I like also coaching people, not just being coached. And so I then decided after, a couple of people said, oh my God, I would love to hire you as a coach. I was like, oh, maybe I should do it. And so I then decided to prototype it. And when I prototyped it, was really to do it for free and see how I like it. And that's how I learned to really prototype something before quitting my high paid corporate job. It would be maybe a good idea to try it out. Because it's one thing to coach one person, but how does it feel to coach 10 people? I don't know. So I did that. Long story short, I spent 6 years or 7 years bouncing around from job to job with just being fast at finding a new job. I think in 5 weeks, I had my new job every time.
Wow.
It was basically wasting a lot of time because I was just aimlessly looking for the next big thing and never finding my purpose until I actually took the time. So I think that's my big takeaway. Do it properly, and find the time to do it.
And just out of curiosity, so you said that you found your dream job a couple of times. What were those dream jobs?
Oh yeah. So I started my career. Well, I studied one thing. Then after I studied, I realized I needed something else. I studied art direction. And then I was in advertising. So this was the whole career of being super creative. I loved it. But the hours are kind of crazy, right? Every weekend I work. It's like, that's not really what I want to do. And then I decided, then I built an app. One of my companies was an app. So in that process of building an app, I became a lead product designer. So I worked for a couple of companies like Audible. And then I realized, oh my God, then I moved into consulting as a designer. And then that's when I realized I don't see myself as a design director. So if I don't see myself as a design director, what am I working towards? And then I decided to go on my journey. Yeah.
Okay. So what made you feel like those were your dream jobs at the time? Just out of curiosity. And then what made you realize, not quite so much?
Yes. So, and this is maybe interesting for everybody. It's actually haven't thought about this before.
Right.
It's feeling in your belly when you know that flow state. You're like, wow, it's a feeling. It's hard to describe, right? That thing when you know, like you met
Lose
some,
track of time.
when you met, it's like the same
Yeah.
feeling when you met somebody, and you like, he or she is the one, right?
Uh-huh.
You just know. But then the reality kicks in sometimes and you realize, oh, cool, it's expected that I work every weekend. I don't like it. Let's maybe look for something with a more sustainable work-life balance. So I think there's one thing of what we think it is, and then there is often the reality of what's expected in that job. Like for me, actually, I took a consulting job where I thought, that was the thing. And then I realized later that we were expected to travel 50% of the time, which I didn't know. In the interview, it was not communicated. So sometimes you don't know until you do it.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. Like when it came to my own career, like I thought that being a therapist was like the only thing that I was destined to do. I was very dramatic about it. But yeah, it's that same idea of like learning about it and like going to school for it and then actually getting in the field, and things are very different. And your idealized kind of version of what your career was going to be can change dramatically. But yeah, no, I like that you compared it to relationships too, because it is kind of like that. You can fall in love with multiple people over your lifetime, and then you can also fall out of love with them because life gets in the way, or people's personality traits change or are uncovered. But yeah, so okay. So how long were you at those jobs, just out of curiosity?
It was different. Like as a designer, I think my whole design career was about 10 years. At some of these jobs, it was, 2 years. Sometimes it was a little bit less. And I think looking back, I actually sort of regret even, always like stay a year longer than you wanted to. But there's always a phase of transitioning as well. So I think what really helped me as well was, I think that I had this inner feeling always that I knew there was something else for me. I believed there was something for me that is more meaningful. And I always believed I could design my own life. Even before I became a designer, I just had this feeling. And luckily, very, very early on, I found the art direction job. I was like, I love thinking about ideas for ads. How cool is that? And I think that was the first time when I was really excited about something. And so I know the feeling. But I do coach people, and I know people that come to me and say, I think that you're never going to make money with something you love.
Right?
Really?
That's such a weird like misconception. It's so common though.
That you believe, and it is those people that often make a lot of money and hate what they do. I coach people that make $80,000 to $100,000 a month, and they hate what they do. So we're working on their purpose, right? But it's obviously easier when you're in that place than when you're just, trying to get by and you cannot miss a paycheck.
Yeah. I mean, if you're making that kind of money, you can easily, well, I'm assuming I don't make that kind of money, but I'm assuming you can be unemployed for a while and do a little soul searching and still not have to worry. Okay. So that's interesting that you brought that point up. Because I think that is one of the things that can get people stuck, right? When it comes to looking for greater purpose, well, there's that mindset of like, well, either I get paid or I do something meaningful. I can't have both. So what happens when you do encounter like a client who, say, doesn't have the luxury of making $80,000 a month and does need to stay employed? Because that can definitely be a way to be stuck, right?
Yeah. So I always ask, what's your deadline to find a new job? So sometimes it's about just getting out of the job you're at. And I help a lot of clients just finding their dream job, and we don't have to change careers. That usually happens quite fast. That usually happens in 3 or 4 coaching sessions.
Oh, wow.
Unless it's like a lot to go through, right? A lot of like limiting beliefs, confidence issues that can, but I see a lot of people that just signing up for coaching, they get that commitment. They committed to themselves, and that gives them this boost of energy. where they suddenly come back to the second session and say, oh my God, I applied at 3 jobs and I got 2 interviews, and then they have a job 3 sessions later. That happens actually very often. I would say most of the time. But what is a longer journey is the purpose. Finding your purpose takes longer. And that's actually something that I find even more exciting as a coach, because it's like trying to help somebody discover, that thing. It's like finding love.
Okay. So you said that when you found your purpose, because I mean, it seems like it's a pretty significant shift from going from these like creative roles where you're like creating things, designing things, and then going into coaching. I mean, there's maybe some overlap, but like what made you decide on that transition specifically? Because it does seem like it's very different in terms of a skill set.
Very different. And I remember when I was thinking about my career when I was 18, there were all these tests and assessments, and I was at like job where you were like off service. I said, no, I just want creative. So it's like a different identity. I just realized I like being coached. And some of the exercises that I do with my clients, I call that islands of interests, where you look at all the things that you love, you talk about, people come to you for advice, and you put it all out there. And then we brainstorm from there. So one of the things that's an exercise I came up with, but back then I didn't have that exercise. So I think I did a Venn diagram or something like that. And my coach had me do that. I put all things and I realized I love coaching. So it's like, oh, cool. I love coaching. So maybe there's something about that. And I actually have been doing self-development since I was 17. I became an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming practitioner or something when I was 17. So it's been always there. It never like changed. It was always part of my journey.
Okay. So what made you want to just do creative stuff and not the like of service kind of work?
Oh, that was also part of me.
Okay.
I think so many parts of ourselves. I grew up like my whole family are designers and architects. I was basically raised with like a bunch of pens and going to every museum you can go to. So that's another side of me that was more obvious, I think, for everybody else out there that knows me.
So do you still dabble at all in like design, or is that not a part of your life so much anymore?
I do design a little bit here and there for when I create, some marketing or some things for myself. But I actually gave up painting when I moved to New York City, something I want to, at one point really do again. Small apartment. I just didn't feel like it fits into the 2 jobs that I had life anymore. But yeah, that creative side is still there, but it comes through more. It's like creation. Like I love to do like podcasts or things like that, videos. So it just looks different, I think.
If you ever want to get back into painting, I learned how to paint during the pandemic, so we should do a virtual one. But anyway, so in terms of like a client that you may have helped with finding their purpose, do you have like a case example that you can share with us?
Yes. So I help a lot of clients to find a new job. And that's, if anybody watches this is something I do all the time, and 100%, this is not a problem. And when we do the purpose work, I think one of the clients that I think I used the framework that I created with a lot, her name is Susan. And we were starting when she kind of knew she didn't want to be in finance anymore. But she had so many fears of even getting started. And she knew she wanted to do something with design, but not what kind of design. So I told her I used to be a designer and I do purpose coaching. So it's like, yes, let's do it. And that, I think what we really had to work on first was her mindset. There was so much fear. And she then actually, what happened first? I think she quit her job first. Then we did a little bit of the prototyping of different design ideas. Then she decided on tile design. She's, from Mexico. She wanted to do something with tile design and produce it. Long story short, she got clear on what she wanted. She actually then got another job to get some money back in the game. And then she realized she wanted to get her skills going. She did a design course. And now she decided she wanted to be a business owner. And she also didn't want to do it alone. So now the latest of the greatest is she teamed up with another woman, and they're building a tile design company, and they just landed their first client.
That's awesome. Wow.
Journey, but it's been amazing to be part of that.
Okay. So once she got over like that mindset piece, were there any other like sticking points for her in this transition?
I think so. Fear, it's also from her. I do a couple personality assessments, so fear was a big. I think motivation also. That's something that, why coaching is so important, because it can take a little bit. Even a job search, it just came off from a coaching call, and just motivation, right? Because if you don't get anything for a couple months, you start to question yourself. You start to question the journey, or most people do. You think, I just had a client who said, I think I'm maybe not smart because I didn't get anything. Maybe I'm not capable, right? So that's the problem with anything that takes longer, right? Because we start to get in our head. I think that was a big one. Motivation, or still is, right? Every session, again, we talk about motivation, and fear. So it's really ourselves. We're getting in our own way. It's really ourselves.
Okay. No, it's funny. I mean, there are so many other like pieces that come into play when it comes to making that kind of a transition. But often the biggest barrier, it really is internal. It's about like being persistent, being able to take consistent action, and being able to stay resilient even when things aren't happening real quickly. I mean, I think that happens to everybody after a while. If you're like striving for a goal and you're not getting results right away, it can be very easy to be like, screw it, I'm just going to go back to what I know, right?
And also, I mean, I coach a lot of different people, and there I realized with kind of the important things we fall into with finding your purpose usually is often also that, how we appear to others, what we're taught, what looks good, and changing a career, right? I had a client, he called it the golden handcuffs, right? Leaving consulting. That's more like when you have a lot of money and like whatever, but like, how does it look when I leave finance? What will my friends say? What will my parents say? Right? Like, even, for me, starting a coaching business after being in consulting, working in a fancy company, like, I could have had those, I didn't have those beliefs, but that comes a lot with clients, comes up a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, our career can be a big part of our identity. It's funny, I was actually reading, are you familiar with Kara Lowenthal? She has a podcast called Unfuck Your Brain, which I know shouldn't swear on. That's literally what it's called.
Check it out.
A post from her yesterday, and she was talking about this exact same thing. She used to be a lawyer, and she was like wanting to become a life coach, and she was really stuck on this idea of like, well, I can't do that because it's like not me. I'm a lawyer, and how do I do this? And now she's like a multi-million-dollar like practice. It's amazing. She's very successful, but still getting over that hurdle. And she was also hung up on like, well, I'm also fat, and that means that people won't take me seriously because, life coaches have to have all their stuff together, which is never the case. But I mean, there is so much tied into like our ideas about who we're supposed to be and how that connects with what we do for a living. But okay, so when it comes to like starting with clients who are wanting to find more purpose, like what's the first thing you usually start with?
Almost always mindset, right? It depends on what the goal is. If it's a bigger change, a career change, you mean a career change?
Well, I mean, in terms of finding purpose, let's say they're not clear. They just know that they don't feel like their work is giving them that sense of purpose and meaning, but they want to find something that they can connect with. They're just not sure what.
Yes. So I always focus first on mindset, right? It depends what's going on. Sometimes it is that releasing the pressure that I have to find my purpose fast or I'll be miserable, right? And there's a couple exercises to do to actually create a purpose statement that has nothing to do with your career, but about who are you being? What are you doing? Who you are as a person. Because even though maybe we haven't found that one big thing that we all are taught that there is, but I believe there's actually many things we are meant to do. And also that every day you can live purposefully. So releasing that pressure that this is one big thing I have to find And also anxieties and things like that. They're all blocking us. We can't see our purpose when we have anxieties. I was there. I couldn't see it. I couldn't find it. So that's the first thing, to really focus on the mindset. And after we, work through whatever is getting in the way, then we can go on this journey of actually brainstorming. That's where I use my exercise a lot, like the islands of interest, where you look at all the things you love, and going through brainstorming, going through prototyping. And along this journey, right, we create a plan. And we often create a transition plan. So kind of like how long to keep that job and moving into the other if you do want to change your career. So nobody needs to run out of money ever.
Yeah, that's definitely ideal. Tell me more about the prototyping thing. This is like the design thinking piece, right? When it comes to like taking a strategic approach to finding something that you love.
Yes. So for everybody who doesn't know, so design thinking is really coming from, like the science of design, the arts, to actually do brainstorming first and then really prototype a potential idea. And it's actually the same thing that I do with clients when they feel stuck. Engagement creates insights, not sitting in your room and thinking about it. So for example, if I wanna become a coach, I'm like, oh, I think it's good, but who knows? I don't know. I gotta start coaching people. Or maybe you take a coaching class, right? Or maybe you meet 3 people that are coaches and interview them. But engagement gives us clarity, not sitting and waiting and thinking.
Okay. So when you say prototype, it's really just finding like ideas about what career paths could be next and then testing it out a little bit in whatever way fits for that circumstance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Testing it. Yeah. So the idea is that you don't have to go and say, okay, I'm going to study psychology for 4 years just to figure out that I maybe in year 1, I'm like, oh my God, I hate this. On day 2, you hate it. So the idea is to actually find that out earlier. So you don't have to quit your job. You don't have to do this and this and this to find out you actually don't like it. So it can save you a lot of time and money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love like the informational interviews as like a way to do that, which is one of the things you mentioned, but so much more useful to like actually talk to somebody who's got the job you might want and get a real idea of like, what does it actually look like day to day, rather than like, this is what it looks like on paper. Because there's so many other like elements of a job that you can't tell are there until you actually get in the job.
Yes. And actually for everybody watching, what is my little insight that I realized, I was interviewing a lot in my life because I was a freelancer. So often every month I had to find something new. And that's why I got really good at interviewing. But at the same time, it was exhausting. So what I did was I realized that the interview process actually is usually a direct reflection of the company. Think about when you had great interviews where people were treating you with respect, you got like a fancy coffee, this and this, versus like very stressful, like this interrogation kind of questions, and you didn't get even a question to ask. I usually watch very carefully what's the interview. And that I think is also a way of prototyping, obviously, right? Getting a little bit of a taste.
Yeah, at least for that company, right? Because
exactly.
Okay, well, great. So do you have any suggestions for like informational interview questions, like 2 or 3 that people might be able to use or that are really helpful in those scenarios?
Actually, don't know if I've ever done an informational interview myself.
Oh, really? Okay.
What would I ask? I think,
Yeah, if you're like prototyping, if you're like asking someone who has the job you might want.
Yeah, I always love to go, and maybe not with the highest person in the room, but somebody that's maybe on your level, to actually ask. So what do you love about working here? What's something that you feel like is a challenge, right? It's the same question with your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And you can see it on their face. You know exactly what's correct and what's not correct. And if 2 or 3 people tell you the same thing, it's a problem with the company. So that's what I would ask.
No, that's a really good point. And it could also, show problems with an industry too, or like a chosen career path, right?
Yes.
So no,
Also, Glassdoor is a good idea too.
Glassdoor. Yeah, that's awesome for like employee reviews, as well as like I think Fishbowl is a new one. I've like played around on it a little bit, but that's supposed to be a good place to find more information about different career paths as well as different companies and what it's like working at them. They've also got some weird like fishbowls, like groups of people on there that talk about a variety of different things. But anyway, so I know that you created a worksheet for people to use that I'm going to share in the comments after we're done with the video. But can you tell us a little bit about that worksheet?
Of course. So as mentioned, it's a lot of clients come to me and say, okay, we got to work on a strategy, but it's really about 80% of success is mindset. So the worksheet is really about overcoming those fears. And really it's about sharpening your mindset before you launch into any direction. And that can even be if you don't want to change your industry, but you want to just like find a dream job, to overcoming those fears that might be holding you back to actually set the goals that you want to set. Because sometimes when there's a lot of fear, we set small goals. So to release it all, and go ahead and use the worksheet, use your journal, right? Turn on some music. And that is actually where I think there can be a lot of the first step that you can go ahead and do starting today.
Okay, so what should people journal about?
Oh, yeah. So just answering the questions
Mm.
and journal it out. So if the space in the worksheet is not enough, I would just grab my journal and journal pages, whatever you feel is serving you.
Okay, awesome. All right, any other words of wisdom you want to share with our audience?
Number one, trust yourself, right?
Yes.
I know like the biggest things we're holding, like think about all the things you have achieved in your life were done by you. And that person, right? What else can that person do? So trust in yourself. And also that the quality of our life is really depending on the amount of uncertainty you can handle. So getting uncomfortable is really important. And just getting out there, doing the thing. We only live once. Go for it.
I like it. Very inspirational. All right. Well, then I'll let this wrap up for today, but it was awesome that you came and joined me for this conversation. And I'm going to be posting Lisa's link to her coach page in the comment section, along with a link to the worksheet. And if you're interested in learning more about how you can work with Lisa, you can sign up for a 20-minute intro call. And yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. But all right, I'll let you get on with your day, and I'll let everyone else too. So again, thanks for joining me, and y'all have a good day.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.